Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at financing a Disney Vacation Club purchase. Specifically, I'll be providing you a link to download an Excel workbook as a tool to help you figure out how much interest you might be paying over time. A Disney Vacation Club purchase often comes with a 10-year loan, and you can of course take that full 10 years to pay it off, but then you do end up paying quite a lot of interest. However, I suspect many of you taking out a loan to pay off a Disney Vacation Club purchase may be trying to pay it off more aggressively than just the bare minimum and taking that full 10 years. With that in mind, in today's video we will be taking a look at the Riviera Resort as an example and very briefly Copper Creek to see how much interest you might be paying over time even if you're trying to pay it off aggressively. Stay tuned. Whether you're new to the channel or a longtime viewer, thanks so much for joining me today. If everything goes according to plan, meaning Disney didn't drop any last-second, very important news I felt the need to cover in its own video, this should be my 100th upload on the Pixie Dust PhD YouTube channel. I'm grateful for your support and I appreciate you all for joining me on this ride. If you like this detail-oriented, math-intensive video, please hit that thumbs up button to like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. You can ring the bell icon to receive notifications whenever I post new videos. And if you have any questions about this topic or really anything pertaining to Disney Vacation Club, leave me a comment down below and I will always try to get back to you with a useful answer. We can also converse outside of YouTube. You can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at PixieDustPhD. On to today's topic. I have a relatively unpopular opinion in that I believe in buying Disney Vacation Club in cash. This is how I bought my contract. For me, personally, I really don't believe in financing this kind of purchase. Specifically because in general, all of the interest you're paying just goes to decrease or completely cancel out any savings you might have by purchasing Disney Vacation Club in the first place. For me, this is a monetary value decision, and so interest really wipes that out. Again, just for my personal situation, I feel like if I cannot buy a Disney Vacation Club contract outright, then I just really can't afford it. That being said, if you're looking at buying the minimum amount of points to be a full member directly through Disney, which at the time of this recording is 125 points, or even a larger contract, for example, 160 points is a very typical sized contract, you're going to end up spending probably 20 grand or more. Definitely if you're buying directly through Disney, but even on the resale market. And really, 20 to 30 grand or potentially even more is obviously just a ton of cash, and who has that lying around? Very reasonably, a purchase of this size, the cost of a car or higher, can be financed. But of course, loans come with interest, and the Disney Vacation Club interest in particular is a bit rough. Let's discuss that interest. There is a big caveat in this video in that I did buy my Disney Vacation Club contract with cash, so I have not been through this financing process either on the resale market or directly through Disney. Also, the examples we're going through today will be based on buying directly from Disney, not on the resale market. It's very possible that the interest rate on your financing through buying on the resale market is going to differ from that of what I'll show you for Disney today. Also, before we really begin, I want to let everybody know that I am not a licensed financial advisor. YouTube is just a fun hobby for me, so absolutely do not take this as actual legal financial advice by any means. To begin, let's go ahead and use the newest Disney Vacation Club home resort as an example, the Riviera Resort. Accurate as of the day I'm filming this, you can go ahead and go online to Disney Vacation Club and get a quote for a direct purchase of the Riviera. The minimum amount of vacation points you need to purchase on a contract to be a full Disney Vacation Club member, so the minimum amount that Disney Vacation Club really advertises is 125, and then at the Riviera Resort, again accurate as of the day that I'm filming this, those go for $201 per point. Your total one-time cost is the overall cost of your points plus closing costs. Then you are quoted financing at just under $325 per month. This assumes you are putting 10% as a down payment. Ignoring the fees from your closing costs, the actual cost of your vacation points is worth just over $25,000. Disney Vacation Club doesn't publicly announce this anywhere, but if you do some research and also by sort of reverse engineering the math, the best interest rate it seems like you'll get is 12%. Upon purchase, if you can't put 10% down immediately, it's likely that your interest rate will be higher than 12%. If you pay the minimum every month, that around $325 monthly, you will end up paying the cost of your loan over the full 10-year time. This results in a total cost of about $40,000, of which about $16,000 is interest. This means almost 40% of your total price goes to interest only. To further this discussion, we'll need to build a tool. Specifically, we will be utilizing Excel to build a very simple amortization table. What's amortization? Essentially, that's the process of writing down the value of a loan. Amortization schedules are used by lenders to create a repayment schedule for your loan based on the maturity date, in this case 10 years. Let's begin building this tool with the example of taking your full 10 years to pay off that Riviera Resort contract. We are making assumptions that I have colored here in blue. For example, a 12% interest rate is an assumption, so is that 10-year amortization period. If you secure a loan with a different interest rate or a different maturity date, absolutely feel free to change these variables. We're also assuming you're making a monthly payment, so there are 12 periods per year. Finally, in many loans, there is a period of time where you are making interest-only payments. I don't believe this is generally true for Disney Vacation Club purposes, so I have left this interest-only payment time as 0 years. To calculate the amortizing payment, we are going to use the PMT function in Excel. For this, you input the interest rate of the loan, the total number of payments for the loan, and the value of the loan. There are other inputs in this function, but those are optional. In our example, the rate is the interest rate of 12% divided by the amount of periods per year. Then the n per variable will be the total amount of time for amortization in years multiplied by the number of periods per year. So 10 years for that 10-year maturity date, and then times 12 because there are 12 periods of a year. Finally, the present value will be your loan balance. In this case, I've modeled that you did pay that 10% down payment, so your current loan balance is the total amount minus that amount you've already put down. Based on that online quote, we know that Disney Vacation Club advertises your monthly payments to be around $325 per month. You can see here that our calculated amortizing payment matches that exactly. This is what I meant about reverse engineering some math to be pretty certain that the 12% interest rate is actually what Disney Vacation Club would use. Next, let's build out an amortization table that will cover 120 periods or that full 10-year length of the loan. Period 0 is pretty simple. You essentially just end with the balance of the total amount minus your down payment. Moving on to further periods, it gets slightly more complicated. If you've downloaded this workbook and are playing around with it in Excel, you'll notice that essentially every cell from period 1 and down starts with an if statement. In Excel, if you put two quotes next to each other, that will print out a blank cell. Therefore, my if logic statement says if the period above me is blank, or if the period above me is the total amount of periods possible, then print this as a blank cell. Elsewise, go ahead and print in this cell the prior period plus 1. Essentially, all this does is ensure that once we hit the maximum number of periods that we can possibly have, this will stop printing cells. For example, in this case, we will have 120 periods, and once we get to 120 periods, you can drag this formula down, but you'll just get blank cells. We will be using this if logic statement pretty consistently throughout the formulas in these cells. Essentially, each of them is saying something along the lines of if the period before me was blank because it's over, the loan period is over, or because we paid off our loan, just stop printing values. Now you can see that with this formula, the output in this cell is 1, which makes sense because that is the prior period 0 plus 1. Next, let's move to the beginning balance column. Again, we'll begin with an if statement. This one says if the current period is blank, then also make this blank. Otherwise, we will output the end balance from the prior period. For the payment column, we are going to utilize a little bit of Boolean logic. Essentially, we are choosing to print either only an interest-only payment or an amortizing payment. Because I have set this whole thing up with 0 years of interest-only payments, these will all end up being our amortizing payment. We are including a minimum function, which you'll see as min in the formula. This essentially just covers our butts for the last payment. If your final payment ends up being less than the amortizing payment amount, then what we'll print is the minimum of those two. The interest column is calculated mostly on the assumptions we made earlier. In this case, it's your beginning balance of the period multiplied by the rate of interest divided by the periods per year. Then the principal is your payment minus interest. So here now you can see in every payment how much is going to interest and how much is going to pay down your principal. And finally, your end balance for the period is your beginning balance from the period minus that interest minus the amount you've paid to the principal. In this case, I'm also using the round function in Excel in these formulas to make it round to the nearest second decimal. This is because the US dollar only utilizes 2 decimal points. This also means the end values have been continuously rounded and may be off by a couple of cents. But using this makes everything in the table look a lot nicer and easier to follow. This is especially true when it comes to utilizing those if statements at the beginning of most of our formulas. Rounding to the second decimal helps ensure that no values are printed past when they should be. So we have now filled out the basics of our amortization table for period 1. Now we can simply copy all of these down through period 120. And as I said earlier, you can keep going. You can keep copying, pasting them past this period, but you'll notice that the if statements are working and only blank cells are being printed. This is the most basic example of taking the full 10 years to pay off your loan. But let's go ahead and assume you will be topping it off with additional payments as you can in order to pay your loan off faster. We will call these additional payments curtailment in this workbook. A curtailment is generally an act of reducing, so a curtailment payment is additional payments to a loan that go only towards your principal. Let's say you commit to paying the minimum amount, but plus an extra $200 every month. This would make your curtailment payment $200. We then adjust the amortization table to account for this curtailment amount. Essentially, your end balance accounts for these payments. Using the same example of 125 points at the Riviera Resort, if we add in this $200 per month curtailment payment, you can see that you'll finish paying off your loan in just 57 months, basically twice as fast as you would if you were making those amortization payments only. The total amount paid would end up being just over $32,000. Your interest paid with these additional curtailment payments ends up being around $7,000 or about 22%. This is a significantly less amount of interest than if you're making those minimum payments and you pay the loan off over 10 years. Moving on to the next example. Let's say you don't have $25,000 in cash to purchase Disney Vacation Club, but you have saved up quite a lot. You're planning on paying off your loan extremely aggressively, and instead of a $200 curtailment payment per month, you're going to do $1,000 every month. To model this, we changed the curtailment value in blue at the top of the workbook from 200 to 1,000. Because we've built the workbook to be dynamic, all of the values in the amortization table below change. Now we can see that the total amount you paid is around $27,500. And of that, only about $2,300 goes directly to interest, or around 8%. Compared to paying your loan off over 10 years, this is a huge amount of savings in those interest payments. However, life is life, and committing to an extra $1,000 per month in curtailment payments may be way beyond what's possible. My life has monthly variable costs, especially with medical bills, but in general, there just sometimes are costs that come in some months and not in other months of the year. Instead of assuming you'll definitely be paying the same amount in curtailment every month, let's go ahead and change this to be variable curtailment payment amounts. Now, rather than change the curtailment amount located at the top of the workbook like we previously did when we changed it from $200 to $1,000, you're just going to go ahead and change it within the table itself. First, let's try a variable curtailment payment per period ranging from $50 a month to $850 a month. Sometimes you're strapped for cash and can't make much extra payments, and other times maybe a bonus came in or your tax refund, something like that, and you can make much larger payments. In this particular example, the average monthly curtailment payment ends up being around $270 per month. It just varies a lot month to month depending on what you can spare. With these extra payments, you'll pay off your loan in 49 months and spend about $31,500 total. Around $6,200 or 20% of your total amount is going to interest in this case. Now let's take the same approach of variable curtailment, but say that you will be doing it very aggressively. Rather than ranging from $50 to $850, let's make the range $500 to $2,000. In this case, you'll end up paying off your loan in about 19 months for a total of around $28,000. The amount you'd be paying towards interest is around $2,200 or about 8%. To give you another tool, let's briefly remake these amortization tables for Copper Creek instead of the Riviera Resort. The price per point is different from Riviera, therefore you're 10% down, as well as that loan balance changes. However, the overall methods for building out an amortization table remain the same. We're also making the same core assumptions of a 12% interest rate over 10 years, with 0 years of interest-only payments and monthly payments, so 12 periods per year. This results in an amortization payment of $355.09, which again matches that quote we can get from Disney online. If we build out a full amortization table with no curtailment payments, then you end up paying about $45,000 for this contract. Almost $17,000 of that total, or almost 40%, is going directly towards interest. If instead you commit to an extra $200 a month in curtailment payments, your total will be about $10,000 less, or around $35,000. This brings your interest cost down to around $8,000 or 23%. These extra $200 curtailment payments every month cut the amount of time it takes to pay off your loan in half, and also basically cuts in half the amount you're paying in interest. And similarly, in this workbook, I've created additional tabs at the bottom where you can go through and have a variable curtailment payment each month. Please feel free to download this workbook and dynamically change these curtailment numbers to see what your payment schedule may end up looking like. Overall, my unpopular opinion of wanting to pay for Disney Vacation Club in cash lies solely in the fact that I don't want to put money towards interest. If you pay only the minimum amount due on a contract directly from Disney at Copper Creek or the Riviera Resort, you're going to end up paying around 40% of your total cost just to interest. All of that money going to interest and interest alone, in my opinion, really diminishes any savings you would incur from buying Disney Vacation Club. At that rate, I feel like I may as well just pay the cash rate to stay at whatever hotels I want, not have to deal with the stress of the 11-month and 7-month booking window, and then also not have this huge loan hanging over my head. If you are going to take out a loan to buy Disney Vacation Club, I would highly suggest you pay it off as fast as reasonably possible. The faster you pay down your principal, the less interest you end up paying. And certainly as you consider the value of a Disney Vacation Club purchase, if you are planning on taking out a loan in order to buy Disney Vacation Club, be sure to factor in the interest into any of your internal value assessments. These examples at the Riviera Resort and Copper Creek are just that, examples. Please download this workbook from the link in the description below and adjust the numbers to best fit your needs. Any of the values I colored in blue, you can go ahead and adjust, and it is a dynamic workbook, so the amortization table below will also change. For example, if you get a loan from an entity with a far lower interest rate, absolutely factor that in. If you are planning on putting more than 10% down as your down payment and your loan balance is going to be smaller, also change that variable. And absolutely feel free to change the curtailment payments, either those static amounts or the dynamic ones, to best fit what you think you'd be able to do. I want this to be a tool for you to be able to model your future Disney Vacation Club purchase. While I hope you find this video walkthrough of the workbook helpful, ultimately I know that this right now is a one-sided conversation. From this side of the screen, I can't understand your financial situation, so I hope arming you with this tool is helpful. I am 100% a knowledge is power kind of person. If you are hoping to make a large Disney Vacation Club purchase in the future, I hope that this tool, this workbook, is another data point to help you understand financially what you're getting into. If you have any questions about the Excel workbook or Disney Vacation Club in general, definitely leave me a comment down below and I'll do my best to help you out. Like I said earlier, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do hope that this tool is useful for you as you're exploring purchasing Disney Vacation Club. May the rest of your day be magical, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.